I'd like to call to order the OnPoint board for Tuesday, January 21st. We all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. I'll call the roll at this time. Emily Bartnick.
Here.
Pam Benner. We were noticed that I didn't know if she was going to be able to be online, but if she did notice that we would, so that would be an excused absence. Ben Brookhouse here. Jessica Castaneda.
Here, I'm online.
Online. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Mark Young. Here. Gail Dugan is present. Beth Johnson.
Here.
Alice Kelsey.
Here.
Mrs. Dr. Clay has an excused absence. Jane Levine.
Here.
And Karen Stratton. I have not heard from her, so. With that said, our next item on the agenda is the provision for public comment as per our bylaws. Is there anyone that would like to address the board on agenda items at this time? Is there anyone that would like to address the board? Is there anyone online?
Is there anyone online that would like to address the board? Nope.
And third, last call. Is there anyone that would like to take advantage of the public comment first? Public comment. Hearing none, we'll go on with the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions, corrections to the agenda before we approve it? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Move to approve.
Motion by Beth to approve the agenda. Do I hear support? Support by Glenn. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed? We have an approved agenda. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that the board would like to, anyone would like to remove from that for further discussion? Hearing none. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion to approve. Glenn makes the motion to approve that.
Support.
Support by Kimberly. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the program committee. Chairman Alice Kelsey, will you give the report, please?
Yes, we only had one presentation today, so that was nice. And it was just kind of a review, but from Diane on the corporate compliance plan. And she will be sending one again in April, where we'll actually, there'll be some training along with it. But today was just sort of a FYI. And I asked her if there was anything in particular, that she has noticed since she started working for us, and she said no, it wasn't anything major, although she is working on a few policy updates that she said would be ready for her during her next quarterly report. But I did, just for myself, like to, I made a note and circled it on our packet that she gave us her phone number and contact information, and I just put that in my phone because I thought you never know when you might want to really need to be able to get hold of her. So we just encourage everyone else to have her name, in your contacts. And then we just chit chatted for a little while until this. So that is my report.
Is there any questions for Alice on the program committee report? Is there any questions from anyone online? Hearing none, I don't see any hands raised, so. One note on the program report, the compliance board report for January is on page 15 and 16. Her contact information is at the top of page 15. That is our compliance report by Diane Bennett. So that is in your packet. With that, we will go on to finance. Chairman Johnson.
Okay, I'm just gonna skim through, the administrative report on page 5 of the packet. In that first paragraph, we have like one outstanding item for closing out the draw on the USDA loan, correct? Yes. And that is to put in fiber optics, which is 1,000 feet away. And there's an issue that had to come up with, we had to use MDOT, and they had a contractor, which wasn't, or we have a contractor that wasn't meeting the requirements of MDOT, so there's another subcontractor involved, but we're on top of it, and hopefully we'll, get that 1,000-foot connected to us, 1,000 feet away. But that is why, the loan is still outstanding on one item. We're showing it in the second paragraph. We are showing a deficit of 54,684 on the Medicaid and Healthy Michigan and the SUV Medicaid combined. Basically, the deficit in the first 2 months is because we had two high cost items, and that was the specialized adult foster care and then inpatient hospitalizations. And those are two very expensive services. So that's why mainly for the deficit. They are going through validating billings to, make sure everything's in line with the new electronic medical record, the new EMR. So other than that, I'm going to move on to Andre. Is there anything you wanted to add to that part? All right.
You're good.
We're going to skip over to the financials, which start on page 10, it looks like. Yep. And in the far right column, the Medicaid subtotal shows that 54,685 deficit that I just spoke of. CCDHC is looking good with $187,240. And then the general fund is on the positive side of 9,680. Going back to the CCDHC piece, that is based on the rates of like 2024, and the new rates will likely drop by just over $100. And Andre has his pulse on that. He's actually keeping track of these CCBH services with the new rates so he can forecast and know what to expect. Because even if these rates are announced in April or May, they're retroactive all the way back to this past October when our new fiscal year started. And he's being very transparent, which the committee appreciates, and he's staying on top of it. But it's going to be a tougher year and not as rosy for the CCBHC. Moving on to page 11. we have October and November, so there's 16.67% of the year used up. So when you look down the far right column, they're fairly close. The 9.27% for grants is just because we haven't performed the services, so we can't claim the revenue on that. Two items that we're also looking at is this earned sick time and the minimum wage that is happening at the state level. That's going to affect our providers, which will affect, you know, the minimum wage going up. They're going to charge more to us, and we're advocating, or Andre and others are advocating at the state level of, hey, what are you going to do when this goes into effect? So another caution for 2025 is this minimum wage effect. So the good news is that if you look at 15.94 of the total operating revenue, it's 15.9. And our total operating expense is 15.5%. So we're still fairly imbalanced and on track for the year. You want to add anything? Okay.
I wrap it up with a vote.
Okay. Well, we still have one action item that we have to approve, or couple, two of them, I'm sorry. We have to still pay the bills, and I move that the OnPoint board approve the December 2024 disbursements totaling $3,397,764.65.
I will take that as a motion.
Mhm.
Do I hear a support for that motion?
Support.
Support by Jane. Since we are spending money, the rule here and Open Meetings Act is if you are present physically, you can vote. But we do have people that are online that are present, but I will call them, but they will have not a vote because of the Open Meetings Act. With that, I will take roll call. Kimberly Bartnick,
Yes.
Ben Brookhouse,
Yes.
Jessica Castaneda is.
Yes.
Mark DeYoung,
Yes.
Gil Dugan says yes. Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Jane Levine,
Yes.
and I would like to take this time to introduce Crystal Dow. She is online with us. She is our newest board member. I was just reminded of that with a note from our executive director, but she was approved at the last commissioner meeting. And so we welcome you, Crystal, and thank you for participating on the OnPoint board.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Thank you. That motion passes by a majority vote.
And we have,
Continue.
okay, thank you. And I also move that the OnPoint board approve the following list of provider contracts for fiscal year 2025. It's Akoya Behavioral Health, and it's for autism services.
I take that as a motion.
Yes.
Do I hear a support?
Support.
Support by Glenn. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Are there any questions? Hearing none, we will take the roll call again. Jane Levine,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Mark DeYoung,
Yes.
Ben Brookhouse,
Yes.
and Kimberly Bartnick,
Yes.
and Gil Dugan says yes. That motion carries. Is there any further reports from the finance?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. Recipient rights, is there any further from last month's report?
Nothing further. The annual report is available though, if the board would like to, it's been submitted to the state, but it is available for the board to review if they would like to look at it.
Is there any further comments on that, Kelsey?
I can review it if you'd like me to, otherwise it's just for your information, so you can look at it as you wish.
What's the board's pleasure? Take it as information?
One question.
Yes, Alice.
I was just curious, it says employment termination 24, and I was just wondering if that, is that above or below average?
I'm gonna flip up here. I would say it's above average for us. I do think it's probably worth pointing out in this section though, that that is per allegation, not per staff. So a good way to illustrate that would be the contract action, which says 14. Contract action was taken in response to 14 substantiations. That was only 2 providers, so employment termination is not gonna be that drastic of a difference, but there are a handful of those that might be the same person who had multiple rights violations substantiated against them.
Oh, okay.
But,
So it's not 24 people.
no, I would say it's probably between 18 and 20 though. And so it's still a significant number, and our substantiation rate was pretty high this year. The past several years, it's been right around 30%, and it was 48 this year. Anecdotally, I've heard that's pretty consistent across the state. I am very curious to see that in the state's version of the compiled data of the annual report. But our neglect substantiation rate was pretty high too. So 20 of 27 neglect allegations were substantiated. So that's where a lot of those terminations are gonna come in.
And this is OnPoint staff? Or this is
And contracted provider.
and contract?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Because Mrs. Johnson,
Is there any insight into, other than being usually connected to some incident? Is there any trend or pattern that you can, pull out to, hopefully mitigate it for what are some of the correction actions other than just termination?
So I do want to spend more time with that this year. I've started, so the way that the data that we pull that populates this report has us break down each individual substantiation and action. And so I'm gonna go back through those and see if there's anything that we could have done before we got to the point of the substantiation. But that's not something we're required to do, so I can't speak off the top of my head on that one. I do think some trends, a lot of the neglect that we saw this year was in group homes where staff either left the property, slept on shift, and so weren't awake to provide the service, when someone requested help. We saw a number of, medication errors and just simple, did not pass medications. And so that, I would say, is higher this year than it has been the last few years. It's pretty common to get I forgot to, so I called the pharmacy. They said it's only been an hour, still fine. But to see, oh, I didn't pass their medications for 3 days, that's abnormal. We have seen quite a few, so these wouldn't warrant termination by any means, but a lot of the substantiations that we saw, especially in the mental health services due to the condition category, were staff implementing restrictions without those restrictions being approved. So some of them could even be necessary, but they didn't report the change in symptoms to the case manager. The case manager couldn't work with the behavior treatment committee. The treatment committee didn't approve their restriction. And so when the staff are making up the restriction themselves without approving it, that's when it becomes a rights violation. So I think some of what we can do preventatively on our end is working with our case managers to see people more frequently, or at least at the frequency specified in the plan, because that is something that has been a struggle with the high caseloads that we're seeing.
Kelsey,
Mhm.
with you and your team providing better training and education out to our providers and the people we serve, their understanding of what is a right step violation
Yeah.
and what is not.
Yeah.
And I have to applaud the recipient rights team for getting that education and that training done. Where before, 5 years ago, we were very sorely lacking on that. And now we have really come along far. You've turned the department around.
Thank you.
So, is there any other comments for Kelsey? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chairman Flynn. We have online, the representative for,
No, I just received a text just before the meeting that Mary's not feeling well and will not join us.
okay. And Stephanie is not there to be able to,
Yeah, I think she's covering West Michigan tonight.
okay. We will pass on the LRE, report. My report this evening, is, we had and I'd like to take this time to, introduce to the entire board, Jana Kerber. Did I get it right this time?
You did.
Who is our new COO.
Thank you.
If you'd like to say a few words.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I am Gina Kerber. I come from Mattawan, so I have a little bit of a drive to get up here. But I have been grew up in Metro Detroit area, have been on this side of the state since I started over at Western and just never left. So I previously worked at Kellogg Company when it was the Kellogg Company. And then worked at Residential Opportunities prior to coming here. So just really excited to be here. It's been one day over a week. So just really happy to be here and excited to work with all of you. So.
We are very appreciative that you're on board and filling a void that we've felt for quite some time now. And looking forward to having you with us here. Is there any other comments or questions that the board might have for Dr.?
No interviews, we've already done that.
Okay, she's on, it's ours. So, thank you very much for being here this
Thank
evening. Giving me the opportunity to introduce you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Also, we had updates on prior meeting topics. And we also had review of the tasks by month. We also had some of the things that Pastor Van Beek, his resignation that I need to have a vote on to accept this evening, will be taken here shortly. But also how we're going to replace him. He's still on the LRE. And there is there's no previous active applicants besides Crystal at this time. So we're going to be looking for someone come April because we have a pending resignation, but not something to be feared of. We will be looking at nominating committee appointments for February. So they can do their work in providing leadership for OnPoint. We also reviewed the recipient rights report submission at the executive board. We have one thing that needs to be really brought up, and it's important. This board needs to take and collectively together, all of us, be involved in the evaluation feedback for the executive director. So if you have not gotten or given your evaluation back, be you online, be you here, please get it in the next 48 hours to make it. If not, I'll come knocking at your door. Okay? just a little bit of homework. We also have the current bylaws and board policies. They are in your packet. We will be going and looking over those here next month. I'd encourage you to read through that, familiarize yourself with them. And there's certain obligations and things as board members that we need to be upstanding on. We also, had a report from the Oversight Policy Board about the Public Act 2 funds. And we had further discussion on the retirement rights and the engagement of a new broker for managing our financial assets for our employees. That is for the employees, for the benefit of the employees, so they have best retirement and pension that they possibly can from this organization. With that, is there any questions or comments for me? Thank you very much. We will go on to the executive officer's report. Mr. Whitty.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of items I'm not going to spend much time on in my written report because most of that has been, it was a slow month. I was trying to figure out things I could throw in that report, so I kind of put them in there, but they're not ones that really require much conversation here with the exception of a couple of things. First one, at the bottom of page 25, I started writing a little bit about the conflict-free access to planning. We received a notification from the department, or from the CMHA organization, our trade association, that MDHHS, the state department with whom we contract and the PHP contracts, had received approval from Medicare and Medicaid for their habilitation supports waiver, the HSW waiver for 1915C. And I put in your hands, so the table, has everybody got a copy of this document? If you don't, I'll get you a copy, because it's worth just noting a couple of things. Anybody need one?
No. Finance, probably the members of the finance.
I said I would bring you a 6-page document, and then the folder report is like 7 pages. Yeah, what in the world? Can't even count it.
You smaller documents.
Reduce font.
There you go.
And so what's important about that is that this details, and I took a careful opportunity to pull out of the waiver document, just the language that in yellow indicated what CMHA was concerned about. So this is some 250 pages, but I took out just the language that's concerning to us. And I didn't number these pages, but if you look at the bottom of the second page under D1, Service Plan Development, notice the yellow statements. I'm just going to read a couple of them so you get the flavor here. This is what the state is writing to the federal government and that the federal government approved. So when second paragraph, when providers of direct service are given responsibility to perform assessments and plans of care, they must be the only willing and qualified entity in a geographical area. And then skipping down a few under number 2 there. Provider is the only entity offering service planning in the county as identified in specifications defined by MDHHS. And providers delivering HCBS services due to a lack of other direct service providers in the county. And it goes on and on. It's basically talking about what are the exceptions to situations where if we at OnPoint are providing assessments for individuals, according to the state's rules under HCBS, we can no longer provide the services that that plan points to unless we receive an exception. And the exception is what's being pointed out here. The exception is that we're the only option in the county. And if we are the only option in the county, then the state will certify us as being the only option. And if you continue on the next page at the top, we have to receive a designation, only willing qualified provider, OWQP, another acronym for us to remember. And that we have to meet that criteria, and it establishes that only every 3 years they have to reestablish that criteria. And then we have to adopt certain safeguards in that rules to limit conflicts of interest. Because what they're saying is that for us to assess someone's needs and provide someone service is a conflict of interest. Because the theory being that the person might not want us to provide the service. And, you know, we kind of argue, say, well, they wouldn't have come to us for the assessment, but, okay, so. Anyway, so then the MDHHS is supposed to be directly overseeing and monitoring these through policy, manual language, contract language, site reviews, audits and data analysis. And that they will also expect that we and they will be working together to expand the number of providers in the community so that we're not the only willing alternative. So the thing to just know, the reason that this has got such heartburn in the state is that throughout the country, these HCABS requirements that talk about conflicts of interest apply generally to like 1% or less of all the people covered under Medicaid mental health programs. In Michigan, it's going to be more like 40%. And so all over the state, there's a scramble to say, well, how in the world are you going to come up with enough providers to divide the work so that the person, you know, planning the service isn't the person providing the service? And in our world here, we say, we are planning the service, but that's done by the case managers. And it might be provided by an outside agency, but the authorization comes through another party within the building, Michelle and Utilization Management. And they work independently from each other. Yes, we're under the same OnPoint alternative, but it's not like there's more money in Michelle's pocket if she says yes or she says no. And this conflict of interest, you have to kind of understand, what are we talking about? Conflict of what interest? What interest are we talking about? Because there's no gain to the individual doing the work by saying yes or no, or by doing less or more. And I think the impression is that we operate like we must operate in a commercial world in their mind. And it's really not that way. So, you know, the details of this will all to be worked out yet. The department is will be under significant opposition from most of the CMHA members because of this is a really, really big overreach and will tremendously complicate the work of providing care to people who will have to go through multiple hoops to get things approved rather than a single agency. So the idea of a one-stop shop, well, it's a two-stop shop minimum. So we'll work on this. I just want you to have the language in your hand. I'm sure it will be talked about at the conference next week after next, and when we get into this a little more. But I want you to have the language in hand because we've talked about it. We've written a motion together as a board for you to oppose this. It's gone to the state and it seems to have fallen on deaf ears. But anyway, I just raised it so that you have the background awareness of what else really involved here. And you know, we'll stand up for the right of the people of this community to get the services they want as they want them. We're not opposed to people making choices. So the final comment I'll make is, Mr. Chairman, we were privileged to have the opportunity to host a United Way presentation here at the agency at the end of December. And at that end of the meeting, they surprised us by presenting to us, on your behalf, an award for last year's campaign for the United Way. I'm going to pass this around. The 2023-2024 United Way Top Agency Campaign going to OnPoint. And so they gave one per county, Kent County, Allegan County, Ottawa County, all three under the same United Way header. So because they gave it to us, I really wanted to give it to you because it's your award, because you are our bosses. But we're really happy to be recognized and know that the work that we stand for here as far as making the community better and the dollars that our staff give to the United Way over and above what, you know, is taxed out of our dollars and all that. It's really nice to be able to be part of the community and turn back and give what we can to help make the community better. And the United Way in its new configuration is committed to making sure that each county get its due attention as well. So they were very nice to be able to come and do that presentation for us to kick off our campaign. And so congratulations, board. All I have.
Thank you very much for your report this evening. We are on to provision for public comment. on any topic? Is there anyone that would like to address the board at this time? Is there anyone that would like to address the board at this time? Mrs. Hamilton, is there anyone online?
Is there anyone online that would like to address the board? No.
At this time, is there last time, anyone that would like to address the board? Hearing none, we'll move on. Board comments. Start over on this side. Kimberly,
Everybody be safe driving tonight.
Alice,
I was just, quick question, with the CCBHC, do we call it a fund balance when we didn't have to give the money back? And do we have a fund? We have a fund balance, because when you were talking about how things are gonna be less possibly, I mean, what kind of, what's in the bank?
Yeah, you're talking about the unrestricted dollars that we mentioned,
Yeah.
all last year. Yeah, we still have that. So it's, I think the balance sheet, at the end of September was 1.8 million. So yeah, we still have reserve.
Good.
But we're not approaching it with that in mind.
Well, but I guess
It's
it's
there in
good
the back.
to have it in, you know, like, we've got some money back there.
Yeah.
That we don't have to panic if,
Right.
if things are dramatically less than what we're anticipating or something new comes up. And so I just,
Correct.
so I'm just gonna say in my mind, 1 million, just to
Yeah,
kind of like
yeah.
round things up. So we got $1 million.
any further comments? Mrs. Johnson,
And we didn't have a balance sheet because you said we had to get through the audit first, and that's why you didn't see that unrestricted fund from the balance sheet.
That is correct. But we haven't spent any
Right.
out of that, of the unrestricted dollars. We haven't net capped that. That's still there.
Just was that reporting.
any further?
No.
Commissioner DeYoung?
Nothing further.
Welcome to
Dr. Kerber, glad you're here.
Yeah.
Jane?
No, thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Kerber, and welcome, Dr. Deal. I always like to give a thought-provoking, anecdote or whatever. I get a magazine called The Progressive Farmer, and they have things that, on different topics. And this particular quote from Ann Sullivan is on beginnings. Keep on beginning and failing. Each time you fail, start all over again, and you will grow stronger until you have accomplished a purpose. Not the one yet you began with, perhaps, but the one you will be glad to remember. And that applies to everyone that is in our society. If we keep them moving forward and working towards getting a purpose, and if they fail, helping them stand back up and get to where they need to be, that is our purpose. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn,
Support.
support by Kimberly. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed? And folks, we have just set the record for the shortest meeting.